Imagine walking into a luxury hotel, your heart set on a relaxing stay, only to be met with cold stares and rude whispers. That's exactly what happened to a man named Marcus, a self-made billionaire with a warm smile and a humble demeanor. But the hotel staff didn't see a billionaire. All they saw was a black man they believed didn't belong. Ignoring his reservations and treating him with blatant disrespect, they dismissed him like he was invisible. Humiliated but calm, Marcus decided not to argue. He quietly walked away, his heart heavy but his mind already working on a plan. What the hotel didn't know was that Marcus was not a man to be underestimated. Less than 24 hours later, he walked back into that same hotel, but this time not as a guest. The staff who had rejected him froze, their confident smirks quickly replaced by disbelief and panic. Marcus had just pulled off something they never saw coming, and the tables were about to turn in the most unexpected way. How did this man turn humiliation into one of the most satisfying acts of redemption you'll ever see? Stay tuned to find out how Marcus changed everything and taught an unforgettable lesson about respect, humility, and the power of perseverance. Marcus had built his empire from the ground up, starting with nothing but ambition and a belief that hard work could overcome any obstacle. Growing up in a rough neighborhood, he faced challenges that taught him resilience and gave him a sharp eye for recognizing when he wasn't being treated fairly. But what happened at the hotel struck a deeper chord. It wasn't just about being turned away, it was the way they made him feel like he didn't matter. As he walked out of the hotel that night, his mind replayed the dismissive tone, the judgmental glances, and the sneering smirk from the manager. Marcus wasn't angry, he was determined. He didn't need to argue or prove his worth to anyone. Instead, he decided to take a different approach, one that would speak louder than any words ever could. Back in his sleek downtown office, Marcus made a few calls. He had always believed in using his success to create opportunities, and now he saw the perfect opportunity to make a statement. By morning, the ownership papers for the hotel were sitting on his desk. But Marcus wasn't just after revenge. He had a bigger plan, one that would challenge not just the staff, but the entire system that allowed people to judge others by appearance alone. The next day, Marcus returned to the hotel, dressed in the same understated way he had the night before. He walked through the grand entrance, the same front desk clerk noticing him almost immediately. Her face twisted with confusion, as if she couldn't quite believe he was back. Behind the counter, the manager from the previous night appeared, clearly annoyed. He approached Marcus with a sharp, condescending tone. "Didn't we already explain last night? This isn't the place for people like you," the manager said, his words dripping with disdain. Marcus stayed calm, his expression unreadable. "I'm not here for a room," he replied simply. The staff exchanged puzzled glances, unsure what to make of his quiet confidence. Moments later, a sharply dressed lawyer entered the lobby, a folder of papers in hand. Marcus took the folder, opened it, and handed a single document to the manager. "What's this supposed to be?" the manager asked with a scoff, barely glancing at the paper. Marcus met his eyes with a steady gaze. "It's proof of ownership," he said. "As of this morning, I'm the new owner of this hotel." The color drained from the manager's face. The clerk froze. The room fell silent, and Marcus, still calm, added, "Now, we need to talk." The room felt heavy with silence, the kind that made every breath and movement seem amplified. The manager's eyes darted between Marcus and the paper in his hand, disbelief etched across his face. He stammered, trying to regain his composure, but words failed him. Meanwhile, the front desk clerk stood frozen, her earlier smugness replaced with visible unease. Marcus's calm demeanor only heightened the tension. He didn't raise his voice or gloat. He didn't need to. His presence alone now carried a weight that spoke volumes. "I'd like to meet with the staff," Marcus said, his tone polite but firm. "There are some things we need to address." The manager hesitated, then nodded stiffly, signaling for the staff to gather. One by one, employees filtered into the lobby, whispering amongst themselves, confused and uneasy about what was happening. Word had spread quickly that the man they had dismissed so casually the night before was now their boss. Marcus took a moment to look around the room, meeting their eyes one by one. Some looked down, avoiding his gaze, while others appeared defensive. The manager stood off to the side, his posture rigid. Finally, Marcus spoke. "Before we go any further, I need to know, why did you treat me the way you did last night?" His question lingered in the air, heavy and direct, forcing everyone to confront the truth they'd tried to ignore. The tension in the room was palpable, every second stretching longer as Marcus waited for someone to answer. For a moment, no one in the room spoke. The tension was suffocating. Eyes darted nervously, waiting for someone else to break the silence. Finally, the manager cleared his throat, his voice shaky but laced with defiance. "It was nothing personal," he said, avoiding Marcus's gaze. "We have certain standards to maintain here, and, well, you didn't seem to meet them." Marcus raised an eyebrow, his calm demeanor still intact. "Standards," he repeated. "Is that what you call judging someone based on their appearance?" His voice was steady but carried an edge, each word cutting through the room. Before the manager could respond, one of the younger staff members stepped forward hesitantly. She looked nervous but determined, her eyes flickering between Marcus and the rest of the team. "I wanted to say something last night," she began quietly, "but I was scared. The way you were treated, it wasn't right, and it's not the first time I've seen it happen." The room shifted uncomfortably as her words hung in the air. Marcus turned his attention to her, his expression softening slightly. "Go on," he urged. She hesitated, then continued, "This hotel, it's not just the guests. Staff who don't fit a certain image, people like me, we're treated differently too." The revelation hit like a thunderclap, deepening the weight of the moment. Marcus hadn't just uncovered his own mistreatment, he was starting to see a larger systemic problem within the hotel's culture. The stakes had shifted, and now he realized this was about more than his experience. Looking around at the faces in the room, Marcus felt the gravity of the situation grow heavier. This wasn't just about proving a point, it was about setting a precedent. "Thank you for your honesty," he said, addressing the young staff member. Then, turning back to the group, he added, "It seems there's more to fix here than I thought." The room grew even quieter, the unease spreading as everyone wondered what Marcus would do next. Marcus took a deep breath, letting the weight of the moment settle over the room. He looked at the manager, the staff, and finally the young woman who had spoken up. "This isn't just about last night," he began, his voice calm but commanding. "It's about a culture that lets judgment and bias thrive, whether it's directed at guests or your own employees. That ends today." The manager shifted uneasily, his confidence completely shattered. "What are you planning to do?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Marcus's expression didn't waver. "The first thing I'm doing is implementing mandatory training on respect, diversity, and customer service for everyone, starting with management." His eyes locked on the manager. "And that includes you, if you're still here by the end of this meeting." A murmur rippled through the staff, some exchanging nervous glances, others nodding in quiet agreement. Marcus continued, "Next, I'll be meeting with each of you individually to understand your experiences. If there's more to uncover, I want to know. And as for this hotel's standards, they're being rewritten to ensure every guest and employee is treated with dignity." As the staff began to process his words, Marcus turned to the young woman who had spoken earlier. "What's your name?" he asked. "Amira," she said, her voice steady now. "Well, Amira," Marcus said with a small smile, "I think it's time this hotel had someone in management who actually understands what respect looks like. If you're interested, I'd like to offer you a leadership role." Gasps filled the room as Amira's eyes widened in shock. "Me?" she stammered. "Yes," Marcus said firmly. "You had the courage to speak up when it wasn't easy. That's the kind of leadership this place needs." As the staff erupted into whispered conversations, the manager looked like he might protest, but Marcus silenced him with a glance. "You can stay and learn, or you can leave, Marcus said simply. The final twist came as Marcus prepared to leave the meeting. He turned back to the group and said, "One last thing. I didn't buy this hotel just to make a point. I plan to turn it into a space where everyone feels welcome, where stories like mine don't happen again. So, if you're ready to be part of that change, let's get to work." The staff, stunned but inspired, watched as Marcus walked away, leaving behind a legacy far greater than any act of revenge. Over the weeks that followed, the hotel began to transform. Marcus worked closely with the staff, making sure every voice was heard. He listened to their stories, their frustrations, and their ideas for change. Amira stepped into her new leadership role with grace and determination, quickly earning a respect of her peers. The employees who had once been overlooked now felt empowered to contribute, and slowly the atmosphere began to shift. Guests started noticing the difference too. Reviews poured in, praising the welcoming environment and exceptional service. What had once been a place of exclusion was becoming a model for inclusivity and respect. Marcus didn't just invest in the building, he invested in the people, and it was paying off. The former manager, unable to adapt to the new culture, quietly resigned, and in his place, Marcus promoted another employee who had been unfairly sidelined for years. The hotel now thrived under a leadership team that valued integrity over appearances. As Marcus walked through the lobby one evening, he saw the smiles on the faces of both the staff and guests. For the first time, the place felt alive with warmth and purpose. He smiled to himself, knowing the real victory wasn't about owning the hotel, it was about rewriting the story.